Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
And I lost my notes. Seriously, what did I just do with them? Here it is. I am ditzy today. Hello, this is Allison Nissen with the Florida Writer Podcast. Today, I am with Joni Fisher. Joni, thanks for stopping by.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, give me the 1-minute elevator pitch about you.
I love to write suspense because my characters are strong women. And I believe it takes a lot of strength to just get by in the world. And I have had a lot of role models in my life that are very strong. And I think strong women make stronger stories.
Now, you started off as a journalist.
Yes.
And did the journalism help you get into writing mysteries?
The journalism was a way to make a living so that I could take time to write. I put my husband through graduate school in my writing. I've worked as a technical writer at a Fortune 500 company. I started writing for magazines and newspapers. It was a lot of fun. The pace was a little better. It just worked out really well. So it gave me a lot of time to choose my projects and make money so we could live on it. And then journalism was hard for me to switch into fiction because in journalism school, they beat point of view out of you. They don't want you, unless you're a columnist, they don't want your point of view. They want you to have an objective, present both sides, stick to the facts, give the full story, quote the experts. Don't come up with conclusions. Don't tell us your feelings about it. And that was very off-putting when you're trying to write fiction, which is so much about point of view.
When you write fiction, then you don't do an omniscient point of view.
I did in my first novel, and it was really terrible. I had to bury that thing in the backyard.
No bodies found.
No, it was a quiet service. Yes.
Quiet service, good. What types of things did you write when you were a journalist?
I put myself through college working for a newspaper, and I was on the arts desk, which was kind of fun as a college student. I got free tickets to anything I wanted, whether it was a rock concert or an opera or whatever kind of entertainment that was out there. I'd get tickets to it, but then the downside is I'd have to go back to the station and write it all up. And the photographer would sometimes come with me, or I'd take my own pictures. And that was hard, but it was fun. A lot of late nights, but it paid the bills so I could get through school.
At that point, you switched to freelancing?
Yes. Once I got out, we moved to New Orleans at a time when the two newspapers were merging. They were laying off people with 30 years journalism experience. So I couldn't do that anymore. There was no opening. And he's here at this medical school. He's not going to move anywhere. So then I had to find out what else I could do with my job skill set. And I ended up working for a Fortune 500 bank, writing policies, procedures, speeches, training. It's a slow death. It's not very creative.
A slow death.
But it's
like that manuscript. It's buried in the background. I'm starting to see a theme here. Maybe this is how your fiction career started. You just saw these things in your life and went, oh.
And it was a 5-year working for that Fortune 500 company, and it taught me a lot about my discipline of writing. Because if you have to produce so many policies, procedures, you have to interview people, you have to understand exactly what they want out of this policy and procedure, then it gets audited. Then the banking people look at it, then legal looks at it. You can't really be overwhelmed easily. You have to be able to take a lot of criticism because they'll sit in a meeting and argue about he/she as a proper pronoun. And you just want to die. It's like 1,000 cuts, that Japanese torture, bleed to death one drop at a time. It was difficult because I knew it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to do it. But knowing there's an end to it helped.
Do you ever think about writing a book about some person who is that person having to sit through meetings and maybe then the CEO winds up? So you write crime fiction.
Yes.
And is that different than mysteries?
I believe so. In a mystery, you generally don't know who committed the crime. And the reader and the investigators are trying to find out at the same time. In a suspense, you sometimes know who the bad guy is, who committed the crime, but you're waiting for the rest of the characters to catch up. So the reader's in on some more knowledge than the characters are. And you fear for the characters because you know things they don't.
I do like reading suspense crime, suspense. Those are my favorite things. They are my guilty pleasure because they're page turners. So how do you get people to keep turning the pages?
There are a lot of techniques. Like mysteries, you can put in red herrings, false leads. You're chasing down things that really dead end somewhere, or it's a false lead. The real fun part for me is trying to hold off giving information so that when the reader does get the information, it's an oh wow. That's also a turning point. The discovery has more to it than just here's another tidbit or another bit of information or another step in the investigative process. That it also has some meaning that is deeper.
So how often do you flip a plot twist? Do you have a...
Try to do 3 or 4 in the book.
So if your goal was 3 or 4, and how long are your typical books?
90,000 words around there.
And that's approximately 300 pages? I don't know. I should know that, but I don't.
I mean, with ebooks, how do you know? In print, they're around 250 words a page.
Okay.
So, yeah, around 300. Yeah.
But 4 would be, so it's pretty steady. Every quarter of a book would be well, I guess, yeah, every, couple of...
Be 2 or 3 chapters and then
another twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's curious. I obviously don't write any of that. I tend to write memoir. I do a flash memoir a lot, which is, my life in 500 words or less. So it's very different, although there's times mine could maybe be not a crime mystery, but, something that's cagey. No, I take it back. I don't have anything cagey. How about your favorite types of characters?
For example, I'm a private pilot, just a fun hobby that my husband and I took up. And I find that women in male-dominated industries are more interesting to me than a woman in a usual expected role for a woman. Like if I fly a plane and I land somewhere, sometimes the fuel guy comes out and it's like, he's looking around for the guy who got this plane on the ground. And then I have to say, excuse me, yes, I'd like to fill up, I'll be here overnight. And I love that look on their face, like, how did this thing get here? Because only 6% of pilots are women. So to me, I think that's a more interesting thing. I mean, there's nothing difficult about being a pilot. It's, I guess, like golf or any other thing. You just have to develop the skills and practice. And of course, this gets a license. But to me, those are more interesting, the unexpected, because it doesn't fit a cliche. When I was young, my mother told me that her mother told her, you can be a nun, a teacher, a secretary, just these few limit, a nurse, you could be, or mother, you could be these few things and nothing else. And my mom wanted to be a lawyer. For her, she had to step out of the cliche that society told her she had to be. And those are the characters I like. They're not dangerous, they're not bizarre, they're just unexpected.
Do you ever include romances in your book?
The subplot of the first 2 books are romantic. The 3rd book does not have a romantic subplot. There's a little bit of flirting and interaction just because you have male and females, investigating the same crime. They're going to interact at some point. But the first 2 have romantic subplots.
When you have the romantic subplots, are the characters non-cliche? So you would...
Yes.
Yes. So it'd be, say, I am unfamiliar with the actual books, but let's say...
The subplot in the first book...
And what's the title?
North of the Killing Hand. If you're reading the books chronologically, that's the prequel, that's the beginning.
Okay.
The subplot in there is there's a Southern FBI agent who falls in love with a woman who's a veterinarian. There are more female veterinarians than there used to be. It's still considered a male-dominated industry. And to be a large animal vet, it's very rare to have a woman. It's difficult to, in fact, I remind my husband of this once in a while, that it's more difficult to get into vet school than med school.
I did not know that. Well, there's fewer vet schools in the United States. I did know that part. So how would you measure success?
I got my first fan postcard like 2 months after my first book came out. And that was so gratifying to know that this complete stranger really loved my book. To me, that's success, because I didn't know her. She probably got the title off of Goodreads, and sure, I'll try a new author. I mean, that's a big risk for readers to try new authors, because there's so much to read out there, and I really appreciated that. That made me feel very successful. I think winning awards is also a great way when your peers say that they like your stuff. That's huge as well.
That is huge. That is huge and very gratifying. When it's somebody whose opinion you value because they understand the struggle of the writing. How many edits do you go through for each book? Do you have a process?
I do have a process. I'm pretty anal about that. I do one rough draft, and I don't care about spelling, grammar, punctuation. I'm just trying to get as much on the page as possible. And I do that during November for NaNoWriMo, because I have to get out of my own way to get to my own voice, to write naturally and not stop and question and edit things. So for me, NaNoWriMo is get that first 50,000 words down on the computer. And that's basically the whole first draft. Then in the next draft, I go in and I move things around. I add more setting, because my strength is writing dialogue and not prose. So I have to go back and add more of the setting and the description of characters and the description of action. And then it's just going over it and over it and over it again. So it sounds right. I also have some really brutal critique partners. They're extremely helpful too.
What's the secret to writing dialogue?
Depth.
Depth.
Mm-hmm. You want to have subtext. If people are saying exactly what they mean all the time, it's boring. It's that other layer. They're saying one thing, but there are other meanings under it. That, I think, is the secret to really great dialogue. And to make sure that you know your characters so well that they're going to express themselves uniquely. I go back over a scene over and over again, and I try to see it from the point of view of each character who talks. And I try to remind myself, this guy would not describe this color as vermilion, okay? That's me talking. And I need to say, if I'm in a guy's point of view, I'm sticking with those 8 colors in the primary crayon.
So it's yellow.
Yeah, the Crayola box that you get in kindergarten. Yeah, the 8 colors, that's it. It's yellow, green, blue, purple maybe, but they don't know a lot of colors, and they don't really care unless they're an artist or a photographer or someone in the visual arts. And more men are colorblind than women.
That's a fact I didn't know.
So they express themselves differently. And I think that's a key to making the dialogue real, is to make sure that the guys sound like guys, the women sound like women, and they're unique to their personality.
So you're creating unique characters,
yes,
that stand alone and come to life via dialogue, mostly.
Yes, and they also, police officers talk differently, whether they're state troopers or Metropolitan PD or small town PD. They all talk differently. They all use different language.
Sounds like a lot of research.
It does, but it's fun because you find people are very willing to talk about what they do.
Just like us. Here we go. I want to say thank you so much for stopping by, Joni Fisher. This has been a lot of fun. Now, we're moving to our rapid fire. Are you ready?
Sure.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions. All right. Dawn or dusk?
Dawn.
Why?
Get more done.
You're a morning person.
Not usually, but I can get more done now.
Get more done. There you go. Favorite season?
Fall.
Fall.
Colorful. I grew up in the Midwest. We're there for real seasons. Down here in Florida, we get 2, hurricane and tourist.
Mosquito season. All right. Do you believe in fate?
I believe that God directs some things. That I don't believe in coincidence.
I don't either. It's all in the matrix. All right, Joni, thank you so much. This has been Allison Nissen with the Florida Writer Podcast. Allison out.
Author and journalist Joni M. Fisher taught at a Fortune 500 company and a police academy. An active member of the Florida Writers Association, the Women's Fiction Writers Association, and Romance Writers of America, she writes for aviation magazines, and her Compass Crime series has gathered attention in Publishers Weekly and earned recognition in the National Indie Excellence Awards, the RPLA, and other national contests. For more information on Joni Fisher, visit her on the web at www.jonimfisher.com. That's www.jonimfisher.com. For more information on the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at www.floridawriters.net.